Joy Boy was the first pirate, and the man that we've been crazy eager to learn more about for many years now. I mean, I've been talking about Joy Boy quite a lot on the channel because I'm just so fascinated by who he might have been. And his insane story was of course written down on the mysterious poneglyphs that we're trying to decipher, but what if we've already seen what his story is? What if we are currently still learning his story because Joy Boy is Luffy? Oh yes, dear friend. Today, we're gonna dive into very, very dangerous waters as we explore a theory about Luffy time traveling into the past to become Joy Boy. And I can already hear it in the comments, right? Manu, you're washed! Manu, you're smoking some insane reefer! Manu's crackpot theory mode again! Under 1 minute, gang! And what can I say? Yeah, I am in crackpot theory mode right now! Oh, crackpot theory! Ooh, yeah, crackpot, blah, 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 blah. Or, at least that's what I would normally say. That's why I haven't covered this entire Luffy time travels becoming Joy Boy angle in a very, very long time. I made a video about this, I think, in 2022. Like this one here, it's been a long time, and even back then, it was like spicy territory. And the reason's quite simple. Even though the idea is fun, it's just not really something that's super resonated very deeply with me, at least compared to many of the other ideas we've talked about on the channel, like Joy Boy being a king, or the Prince of the Ancient Kingdom. But like, with all the recent confirmations of Zebek and Davy D. Jones and all that stuff, it just has felt less time travel-y and much more, well, like sick, nasty, ancient history era stuff, right? But with that being said, I will admit that there is of course a reason that I'm dropping this video right now, and it's because there was a detail that I overlooked in chapter 1174 that, and I want to stress this quite a lot, might give a little bit of extra credibility to this whole Joy Boy is actually Luffy idea. So do entertain my silliness for a little bit. You always do, I know, but you know, if you're new. And let's just enjoy the ride together for a moment. You know, check your disbelief and your criticism at the door, and let's just have fun for a moment. First, I want to cover all the evidence that there is for this theory, stuff I've talked about a couple of years ago, and a lot of new stuff that actually speaks for this. And then at the end, I'll share with you what I actually realized finally, something that might be even crazier that would make so much sense if it turns out to be true and might be a lot more satisfying. All right, cool. So, what's the big new detail that Manu overlooked? Well, it's this panel right here of Colin holding a little toy robot, because yes, as I'm sure you've also noticed, that is not exactly a normal toy. It is in fact the robot Emeth in toy form, but for a giant, so size gets weird, I guess. It does make me kind of wonder though, if Emeth is like the equivalent of, I don't know, like Optimus Prime or Gundam Wing Zero in the universe of One Piece. That would of course be pretty rad, especially because there was that toy from the Wapol cover story. Do you remember this? Have you seen this? That actually also looks a lot like Emeth. Kind of blew my mind. Now, this detail alone doesn't really back the Luffy is Joy Boy idea, of course, but it did kind of get me started on a new journey down this very unique and very spicy theory. Because it does imply something that I've been wondering for a while. Is Emeth from Elbaf? Which I did recently start to believe after the entire robot-shaped laboratory thing, and the fact that Emeth has a big fur belt that just kind of makes this idea feel pretty on point. But then I also noticed something that, I don't know, I either forgot about or just straight up totally missed for some reason. Did you guys realize that Emeth has a massive X on his forearm? Like in his flashback that we get with Joy Boy, the first time we see Joy Boy in a flashback in silhouette, you can very clearly see it right here. Now, I think I just sort of moved past it in the moment because it's from the same chapter as, you know, the massive Haki knot explosion, and I was going crazy about the idea that you can weave Haki into a physical thing. Still going crazy about that, but yeah, he's got the big X on his arm, which of course is where this idea really starts to take shape again. You probably know where the first part of this is going. This big X is arguably the largest piece of evidence for the idea that Luffy, at some point in the near future of the story, travels back in time to the Void Century era and just becomes Joy Boy. Because as we know from the Alabasta saga, the X on the arm is a classic Luffy and Straw Hat crew move, right? You can see it right there in this here. This is like a Japanese style wood print that this Japanese grand wood print master made, like only a couple of them. I got this a couple of years back. You might have seen it in the back of the videos of the scene from Alabasta. This is one of the coolest pieces of art I own, by the way. But yeah, the mark of friendship is used as a sign and symbol to notify the crew of their allies and their nakama. Of course, back during Alabasta, it was used to get around my goat, Bonkrei's disguise, and him being able to copy everyone's faces. And the X on the arm would symbolize who is actually part of the crew, and since it was a hidden mark, Mr. 2 wouldn't be able to copy it with the Mane Mane no Mi. But you might have noticed that Oda recently, or I guess recently in the grand scheme of the story at least, has used the X once again. Because after Egghead Island, particularly in chapter 1130 here, it does seem like my favorite princess, Nefertari di Vivi, printed an X on Gear 5 Luffy's arm in the newspaper as a message to the crew to showcase that she was safe and sound. Actually, I lied. Sorry, I can't live with myself lying to you. It kind of feels wrong. The truth is, Vivi is not my favorite princess. My real favorite princess is actually Princess Momonoke, the low-key and objectively best Ghibli movie out there. Though I will admit that Castle in the Sky and Sento Chihiro are pretty close there as well. Sento Chihiro, what's that in English again? Oh, frick. I keep watching these in Japanese. Sento, the bathhouse, Chihiro, what is it? Sento Chihiro, Spirited Away. Oh my god, how could I forget this? Yes, my point is, top 3 Ghibli movies are Princess Momonoke, Spirited Away, and then Castle in the Sky, and Nausicaa is also really good. Also, it is pronounced Ghibli in Japanese, so I don't know, you can do with that information whatever you want. I have gotten in fights about Ghibli versus Ghibli for too many times to actually go back into that again in my life. My real point here, of course, though, is that as you can see, the X doesn't mark the spot, but it does mark who is part of Luffy's nakama. And Emeth having an X on his arm would be a really clever way of Oda foreshadowing that Luffy is the one traveling back in time, becoming Joy Boy, and in a, to be honest, very Luffy-like move, befriending a giant robot. And the reason that Emeth recognizes him immediately but can't place it is because Luffy is now, well, a lot younger. Joy Boy seems to be a proper adult in the flashbacks we see his silhouette in, right? So I do think that Emeth just could be struggling to really place Luffy's face here. Like, let's be real here for a moment. Emeth has been asleep for like over 200 years at this point, is breaking down big boy style from all the fighting, and Luffy's face is a lot younger here. It's kind of like when you look at your homeboy's baby photos and like, yeah, that I guess technically is the dude you were out with drinking until 5 a.m., got into a back alley brawl with, and then jumped in the river to escape the police with, but he just looks a little bit different here. But is that it? Is the X on the arm all I've got going from here? Did X Gun give it to me? No. Of course not. This is not a new theory after all. Again, I've talked about this like 4 years ago. It has been around in the community for a while, I think, as well, with like new ideas and like twists how it could go. And there's just tons of little bits of evidence like throughout the years that kind of help make this argument feel in some way somewhat solid. Now, one thing that I've actually seen circling around on Twitter, which is now also an X fun fact and is just a real dumpster fire of, I don't even know, like this is a dark place. Jesus Christ. But what I've seen circling around in the depths of that dumpster fire is that epic anime shot of Luffy reacting to Joy Boy's Haki blast. Now, I don't often cover anime details on this channel, as you know, because there's just a lot of liberty taken in them, and I just feel like the anime at this point is kind of its own story with almost its own power scaling. Like, it's very different in certain aspects from the manga, even though the animation is absolutely fantastic, of course. But I feel like Egghead specifically clearly had a lot more of Oda's hand in it than previous arcs, and so I'm pretty happy to explore details here and there with it as well, just because, you know, it seems more relevant. First off, the shot here looks awesome because Luffy looks absolutely mortified at sensing Joy Boy's Haki blast. But Luffy does have a pretty decent reaction to it in the source material, chapter 1122 to be specific. He's absolutely blown away at Emeth's Joy Boy Not release, but what I've seen now some people chatter about is that Luffy might be so mortified here because he recognizes that this is actually not Joy Boy's, it's his own Haki. More mature, yes, stronger, and obviously way more potent, but Luffy might be having such a confused, shocked reaction to this because it's so uncanny. That might be his own willpower he's feeling, which would of course be confusing and terrifying because how would Emeth have it? And why does it feel like my own? Well, Luffy, it just might be yours. That's straight up the answer here. Now, you might have picked up on the fact that I've been distancing myself a little bit from this point and just saying that people are talking about it. And well, to be fair, I kind of want to give credit where credit is due, even though I really can't find the original post of this idea and where it actually came from. So just to be like extra clear here, I did not come up with this specific conclusion myself, but I find it very fun and interesting. As you know, a lot of theories that we talk about on this channel are a little melting pot of my own ideas, older ideas I've had in the past, things that I've noticed recently, and conclusions I've come to, but they're usually also informed by classic fan ideas or observations that I can kind of extrapolate on and blend into a final product here to present and talk about with you. But I do want to give the credit here, of course. But I'll also admit, while I do think that the idea is pretty epic, like 2011 internet-style millennial epic sauce epic, I don't know, man, like, in the manga, he just kind of goes, whoa, Conqueror's Haki, woo! And that's more likely in my mind, I guess. Though I will say there is some more and other evidence that I can get behind for the idea that Luffy is actually Joy Boy. Now, if my super accurate impression wasn't clear here, I think that Big Z, Zunisha, the elephant, in case you forgot, the elephant in the room, at the end of Wano, when Luffy goes Gear 5 silly style, right, for the first time, Zunisha gets a little bit rowdy. He gets amped up, like me when I eat 2 pieces of chocolate, even though I'm only supposed to eat 1. Sneaky. Now, specifically, Zunisha does not say, oh, this feels like Joy Boy, or, man, Luffy's giving big Joy Boy energy. I don't know why Zunisha sounds like that in my man. Anyways, like Zunisha, a Loxodon who knew Joy Boy, proudly declares in this moment that Joy Boy has returned, which sure likely is implying that a man of Joy Boy status using his powers is back. But it could actually just straight up mean that the Joy Boy himself that they knew is now here because he is Luffy. Which actually also lines up with the silhouettes we see of Joy Boy in the animated manga, where he straight up has just the exact same silhouette as Luffy. I mean, like, maybe a little bit taller, but that's exactly how Oda usually draws Luffy. Recently, I actually had a really interesting discussion with the animator Dylan Gu, who you might know from all of his crazy cool animations, and he was explaining to me the importance of silhouettes for character design in anime and manga. They are meant to be very specific to a character, recognizable at an instant. It's something super crucial for character design and something that artists actively consider when they're making a character's design and layout, and animators, both anime people and mangaka, are just drilled that they need to have good silhouette shapes so everything becomes very clear when the audience looks at it. Like, look at these 3 characters. These guys are iconic One Piece characters that you immediately recognize. I know you do because you're watching the channel. It's also a real testament, I think, to Oda's great skill with character designs and posing that you, without seeing any colors, can immediately recognize who this is. And all of these 3 are related, yet clearly they have a very distinct and unique silhouette, except for Joy Boy, who just looks so freaking similar to Luffy. Now, to be fair, you can make the point that Oda has never been exactly the best when it comes to foreshadowing silhouettes. Remember Kaido and Big Mom here, but very clearly he learned something, because Zebek and the Holy Knight silhouettes depicted their final shapes pretty damn well, I'd say. He's getting a lot better, I promise, and I think credit is due where credit is due. But another big thing to discuss is, of course, Toki, the woman with time travel powers from the Void Century who traveled into the current storyline. And while yes, we do know that her power theoretically only works in one direction, it does show us that Oda is absolutely thinking about time travel as an active power that exists in the One Piece world, and that it has a role in his story. So I personally don't really feel like it's unreasonable to expect that whether it's through a Toki Toki no Mi awakening where she suddenly can go the other way, or just an advanced machine or piece of technology, or even the One Piece itself, whatever it may be, there might just be a real way in the story for Luffy to time travel back to the Void Century. Again, time travel is a real power. Maybe, just maybe, it's the only way to actually have a chance to defeat Imu, and we could have gotten that Trunks Dragon Ball branching path narrative type of thing where the One Piece timeline right now that we know isn't actually savable, but if Luffy goes back in time, he might be able to free the world from Imu's oppression in the past. But low-key, I actually really don't vibe with that idea too much. I kind of want all my cool modern-day characters to be free after everything they've been through, right? So maybe it's more like something that I actually recently learned in the Magic the Gathering lore, where Luffy and his friends can't figure out how to defeat Imu, so he goes back in time to just learn how to do it during the Void Century, then comes back to the present to do the thing properly there. That actually feels way more right, I'd say. All of this could line up fairly well also with all of the Roger stuff as well, since he's obviously a big factor to consider in all of this. He has been to Laugh Tale, Rayleigh and Scopper know what the One Piece is, and clearly would see Luffy's role in all of this if this were to be the case. So maybe this is what Roger actually realized and meant when he said that they were too early and that he wished to live in Joy Boy's era. They weren't too early to do something, they were just too early because they weren't supposed to be the ones to find it. Luffy needs to, since he needs to go back in time and become Joy Boy, and that way, you know, Roger was like, oh, like you're telling me the story in the poneglyphs, but actually you haven't even been born yet, kind of that vibe, right? And that's why it's funny, that's why it's a laugh tale, because Luffy's actually telling Roger the story of his own adventure, and maybe Roger's even appearing in that story himself. Especially seeing as Roger knew that he was already gonna die from his sickness, he was basically saying, Luffy, I wish I could live long enough to see your era that I'm hearing about here as in the future, especially because he states that they were too early again. So that part I always thought would be a very cool twist on that entire sequence we got during Wano. And honestly, even though I'm really not a big fan of time travel stuff, this would be a fairly cool and unique angle for Oda to take things with, right? I'm not gonna lie. We've all thought that Roger meant the past, but really he might have meant that he won't still be alive to see the future that Luffy's gonna create after doing all of the time travel stuff. And that actually almost makes me want to cry, because that would be a very emotional and sad thing to actually like then reread later on knowing that. All right, so that's a lot of the big evidence points for this idea, right? Obviously there are some holes, but they could be pretty easily filled or paved over by Oda if this is what he's actually going for here. Now, you might remember that earlier I said that I actually came to realize something while making this video, something crazy that could actually like stem from this very idea, and it would change my personal understanding of the entire series. So, what is it? Or more accurately, who is it? The answer, right after this, no, there's no ad break. Nefertari di Lily. She's been someone I've been trying to place a lot recently, and her weird vanishing after the big war is like very odd, no? Like, Emo's got some weird Reddit moderator obsession with Lily, so there's no shot she was actually killed, right? As you might know, we've theorized before on this channel, and personally I really like the idea that Lily might have escaped to the Calm Belt, found Amazon Lily, and that's that. But what if Lily is not Lily? What if Lily is Vivi, and Lily vanished because Toki sent her back to the future? Like, okay, crazy statement, and I do hope it made some sense here. If not, here's basically what I meant. Presumably, Oda is setting up a big Vivi and Luffy reunion in the future of the story. I think we can all agree to that. Really, all the signs are pointing towards that, so what if Vivi and Luffy reconnect before Laugh Tale, and then after being taught or told the true events of history by Robin and Vegapunk, right? Then the two of them go back in time and learn what they've gotta learn flirt with Emu a little bit, and then both come back to the future, or the two of them go back to try and stop Emu, fail, but learn the secrets to defeat them, and lay out that crazy 1,000-year plan that we've talked about on the channel too. That would be fine as well. To be real with you, I think this would be a very wild way to have a time travel arc in One Piece, show us the events of the Void Century without going full flashback mode, and then still not let it feel out of place in terms of the main story, because they'd still have to come back. It would still end with the modern current timeline. It would just be a cool little Luffy, Vivi, and maybe a handful of other characters detour into the past, but it's not the only big revelation that I might have come to here. Because recently, as you know, my team and I have been looking really deeply into the murals after Loki's big dragon form reveal, and it's just not been clicking for one of my team members specifically. I feel a little bit bad for the poor guy. I do keep him trapped inside my theory dungeon, and his mind has just been slowly unraveling in the labyrinth and chaos that is the mural. And you know, to give him some credit, some stuff is cranky, chunky, funky, and Donkey Kong. To be real with you though, we are led to believe that it's depicting the history of the world, right? But that might just not be the case, because Ripley talks about it being just the dreams of some kids in that same chapter where we get the reveal of the mural, and Saul talks about how the third world from the Harley is the future / the present, right? Which is the plate on the page with the mural. So yeah, stuff is admittedly a little bit weird with it. I remember when the mural first came out, there were a lot of people who were saying this is just showing the future and Luffy's fight against Emu, and I was like, no way, that must be the second world because Luffy doesn't have a sword. But maybe I was wrong, I don't know. And it might just be that time travel could be the answer to why I have been struggling with it. Like, why is a dude that looks exactly like Loki on the mural? Well, because Loki goes back to the past as well. Why are there a giant black dragon and the Arc Maxime? Well, hell, Loki goes back to the first world and is Nika, and so does Enel, right? After he returns to the story in the modern era, which is definitely something that's gonna happen, no doubt about it whatsoever. He's definitely gonna come back, and I'm not saying that this will happen, except for the Enel part, that will happen, but seriously, if you look at the mural more closely, the pieces that seem clunky and weird here might just be explained as they're disjointed from time travel shenanigans here. Or even better yet, what if Luffy was the one who drew it, right? Wouldn't that just be an insane turn of events? We do know that Luffy isn't exactly known for his, how do we put this, artistic talent. And since Ripley seems to imply that it's the dream of a child, maybe this is literally like Luffy's big battle plan for defeating Emu that he was laying out for people based on his time travel. Dude, I would literally die of laughter if it got revealed that the insane image that Oda dropped that I've been struggling with to decipher for over a year now and that has been haunting my nightmares turns out to just be Luffy's dumb plan scribbled on a tree. Like, there's a lot to unpack here, and I do think that the next best course of action, regardless of if time travel is true or not in One Piece, is to go into everything we already know about Joy Boy specifically, whether he was Luffy or not. Maybe that might give us a clue here. So if you want to carry the torch and get to theorizing yourself about this, check out this video where I break down everything we know about Joy Boy, and maybe you'll even catch something that I've missed to solve the puzzle. Let me know if this is, something you would love or hate to happen. Thanks to all of the Patreons. As always, you guys absolutely rule. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video on Thursday.